Naboo was a verdant world that served as the sector capital of the Chomel sector in the Mid-Rim and Trailing sectors, lying close to the border of the Outer Rim territories. Beneath its serene exterior, the planet possessed an unusual plasma-rich core, a feature that would later make it strategically valuable. Its surface remained largely unspoiled, dominated by rolling plains, dense swamps, and vast seas that supported diverse ecosystems. Naboo was home to two intelligent native populations. The Gungans, an amphibious species, lived primarily in underwater cities hidden beneath the planet's lakes and oceans, maintaining a culture distinct from that of the surface dwellers. The surface itself was settled by human colonists from Griswold, who came to call themselves the Naboo, and developed a sophisticated artistic society characterized by elegant architecture and a strong tradition of political service. In later galactic history, Naboo gained disproportionate significance far beyond its size or population. It was the birthplace of several individuals whose actions profoundly shaped the fate of the galaxy, including Padmé Amidala, a key political figure of the late Republic, Sheev Palpatine, whose rise from Naboo's senator to galactic emperor would bring about the Republic's fall, and Jar Jar Binks, whose unintended political influence played a critical role in the transition from Republic to Empire.
You are listening to the Star Lords Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder?
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Geography. Naboo was geologically unlike almost any other world in the galaxy. A plasmic molten outer core surrounded an inner core, believed to be composed largely of nickel-iron alloy, with trace amounts of other elements. While those elements were common elsewhere in the galaxy, the unusual properties of Naboo's plasma were of particular interest to astrophysicists. Both of the planet's major civilizations learned to harness this plasma, producing a form of clean, efficient energy that became highly valued beyond Naboo itself. From the planet's depths, the plasmic magma seethed and bubbled, carving vast labyrinths of winding tunnels and caverns reminiscent of lava tubes, formed by conventional magma flows. Many of these abyssal passages were flooded by immense underground oceans, so deep and extensive that some were believed to pass entirely through the planet. These lightless waters were home to colossal and dangerous life forms never seen on the surface, including the Kolo clawfish, OP sea killer, and Sando aqua monster, among others. The Gungans mastered this hidden underworld. They navigated the submerged tunnels as underwater highways, traveling between sacred surface sites and their concealed cities, and using these routes to trade between their bubble cities. This subterranean network formed the backbone of Gungan civilization, and allowed them to remain largely unseen by surface dwellers for centuries. Plasmic eruptions occasionally forced their way toward Naboo's porous crust, subtly shaping the planet's surface geography. These internal forces influenced mountain formation, tectonic movement, and the distribution of swamps and plains. Above ground, Naboo remained a world of remarkable beauty. Dense swamps, rolling grasslands, open seas, and lush hills defined its landscapes. The Gallo Mountains, the planet's largest range, cut across the main continent, separating the broad northern plains from the Lionorm swamp, and its southern bayous. Beyond the swamp lay the vast lake Paonga, a body of water so large it resembled an inland sea. At its depth stood Ota Gunga, one of the greatest Gungan cities. The surrounding lake country, renowned for its serene beauty, became home to numerous retreat estates and vacation residences, prized by Naboo's elite. First Contact.
The Gungans were long believed to be indigenous to Naboo, though their true origins remain uncertain. What is clear is their deep antiquity. They survived an ice age and fought prolonged battles with the planet's native Virmox, forging a resilient amphibious culture well before recorded history. Millennia before human settlement, Naboo was colonized by spacefaring, force-sensitive species remembered only as the Elders. These reptilian, or possibly humanoid, aliens clashed with the Gungans soon after their arrival, ultimately driving them from the surface and into the planet's seas and swamps. This forced retreat shaped the foundations of modern Gungan civilization, centered on underwater cities and hidden waterways. The Elders flourished on Naboo for nearly 2,000 years, erecting temples, arches, and colossal statues across the landscape, particularly in swampy regions. Similar ruins on Naboo's moon Rory suggest that presence extended beyond the planet itself. The largest known ruin, on the northern edge of the Leonorm swamp, became the Gungan holy place. To the Gungans, these monuments were sacred, and their creators were revered as Guds, places of refuge in times of crisis. Little is known of the Elders themselves. Archaeologists have long debated whether the immense stone colossi scattered across Naboo depicted the Elders or their deities. If the figures are literal representations, the Elders were strikingly humanoid, bearing forward-facing eyes, fleshy lips, articulated limbs, and distinctive headgear. The statue's closed eyes and meditative poses, often marked by a ringed symbol on the forehead, strongly suggested an early reverence for the Force, possibly predating even the Jedi traditions of Tython. This disappearance of the Elders remains a mystery. Both Gungan and Naboo scholars generally agree that environmental neglect and ecological collapse likely played a role, though alternative theories propose a catastrophic natural disaster or an external invasion that forced their departure. By the final centuries of the Galactic Republic, only eroded heads and broken limbs of stone statuary remained, their true meaning still debated. In the ages that followed the Elders' fall, the Ankura and Otola Gungan tribes united, forming a stable symbiotic society. For millennia, they dominated Naboo's hidden depths, lakes, swamps, and subterranean seas, while largely avoiding the open mountains and grasslands, which they regarded as barren and hostile. This long withdrawal from the surface ensured their survival, even as the memory of the Elders faded into legend.
Humanity. Around 3,951 BBY, in the waning years of the Sith Civil War, Elsinore Den Tassia rose to the throne of the core world, Grismalt. One of her earliest acts was to sponsor the Republic explorer Quilon, whose voyages carried him to a verdant, plasma-rich world that would come to be known as Naboo, named for the ancient deity Naboo. News of the discovery spread quickly, and the planet gained a brief, unsavory fame among big game hunters, drawn by its formidable native Virmox, though true colonization remained decades away. Permanent settlement came only around 3900 BBY, when a violent revolution tore through Grismalt. Refugees fled the upheaval under Quilon's leadership, and the blessing of the Jedi arriving at Naboo aboard 3 ships: the Beneficent Tassia, Constant, and Mother Vima. They established their first communities among the mountains and across the broad grass plains, carving out a new beginning far from their manufactured world. Cultural differences between the human settlers and the native Gungans fostered suspicion and unease, yet open war was rare. In practice, conflict proved far more common among the scattered human settlements themselves than between humans and Gungans. Over time, this uneasy restraint shaped Naboo's history, setting a precedent of coexistence that would endure for millennia, even as deeper divisions quietly took root beneath the planet's tranquil surface. The Gungans, long divided among rival cities, were forced into turmoil in 3000 BBY when the warlord Rago unleashed a devastating attack on Otto Sancture, deploying rampaging Bursas, carnivorous quadrupeds native to Naboo. At the time, Boss Gallo was away hunting nerfs to provide food for the annual sacred feast, narrowly escaping the destruction of his city. In the wake of Otto's Sancture's falls, Gallo rallied survivors, uniting rogue elements under the cunning captain Marsoon with the defense forces of neighboring Gungan cities. Together they formed the Gungan Grand Army, a coalition designed to confront Rago's oppressive rule and end the internecine wars that had long plagued the planet. Gallo and Marsoon led his army to spearhead Rago's stronghold. Their victory was decisive. They overthrew Rago and reclaimed the city, which they renamed Otto Gunga, establishing it as a capital for all Gungans. From that point forward, leadership among the Gungans followed a hierarchical system, with the bosses of Otto Gunga, including Gallo's descendants such as Rugar Nas, exercising authority over other city-states. Rago's strategy had exploited the constant rivalries between Gungan tribes, allowing him to oppress smaller groups while the larger cities remained embroiled in their conflict. Gallo's unification not only ended Rago's manipulations, but also laid the foundation for lasting Gungan society, one capable of coordinated defense and centralized governance. The Bursas, once agents of chaos, were driven back, and Otto Gunga emerged as both a political and cultural heart for the Gungan people. Despite lingering prejudices between the human Naboo and the Gungans, moments of cooperation were not unheard of. The two civilizations maintained a cautious, often clandestine interdependence, particularly in trade conducted on the fringes of their society, away from the scrutiny of respectable citizens. In a notable instance, when the human city of Kadara was founded in 2900 BBY, Regent Kalos Suk employed a Gungan security force to protect the settlement from dangerous wildlife. A progressive collaboration that would eventually fade, only to be revived centuries later after the Battle of Naboo in 32 BBY. By the year 1000, a series of crises plunged the human Naboo city-states into internecine warfare, a period later dubbed the Time of Suffering. This century-long conflict, though leaving Gungans largely uninvolved, ravaged the land and delayed a political unification. Around 868 BBY, Naboo formally joined the Galactic Republic, signaling a new era of stability and diplomatic connection with the wider galaxy. By 830, King Jaffin had ended the Time of Suffering, unifying all Naboo under a single rule and establishing Theed as the royal capital in 832. Once a modest farming settlement along the Salu River, Theed blossomed into the political and cultural heart of Naboo, eclipsing Dija Peak. Jafan inaugurated the Jafan royal dynasty, which would provide hereditary rulers for generations, enduring until the line ended without legitimate heirs. Approximately 5 centuries after the Battle of Naboo, a darker chapter unfolded. Hugo Barton sent recruiters to Naboo's struggling Gungan communities, offering promises of untamed seas and prosperous lands in the newly founded city of Lamared. Many impoverished Gungans, enticed by the prospect of opportunity, accepted, but upon arrival, they were forced into slave labor, stripped of that freedom that had drawn them to the venture. This grim episode remained a cautionary tale among the Gungans for generations, a reminder of the delicate balance between opportunity and exploitation. The Gungan-Human War.
The tensions between the Naboo and the Gungans erupted into open war between 150 BBY and 121 BBY, a period marked by upheaval and political transformation. During the conflict, the reigning monarch of Naboo was killed, leaving the hereditary Jafan line without an heir. In the absence of a ruler, the Naboo turned to an elected monarchy, choosing a queen to lead them through the war. Desperate to gain an advantage, a coalition of Naboo noble houses secretly contracted an off-world mercenary group to tip the balance in their favor. The arrangement, however, ultimately proved unnecessary, as the war concluded without the mercenaries' intervention. In the wake of the war, the Naboo codified a flexible system for leadership. Monarchs would henceforth be elected, but the constitution allowed for return to hereditary rule should a dynasty of sufficient merit arise. This clause would resurface centuries later, applied to Padmé Amidala, who declined the reinstatement of a hereditary crown, and later to Queen Kalintha, who may have accepted it. Decades later, between 135 and 125 BBY, remnants of the same rivalry reignited. Certain royal houses again sought off-world mercenaries to press territorial claims against the Gungans, aiming to seize control of their valuable plasma resources. Though the Gungans ultimately prevailed, the conflict cost many lives and saw several swamp cities destroyed. This chapter of Naboo's history was largely suppressed. The details remained known only to those with access to private archives of the noble families involved. House Tapalo and House Veruna founded the mercenary army, drawing the ire of other houses. The patriarch of House Palpatine challenged the head of House Tapalo to a duel over the dishonorable action, but he was slain in the confrontation at the Palpatine ancestral home, Convergence. The conflict officially ended in 121 BBY, coinciding with the death of the elected queen. Naboo abolished the hereditary monarchy, cementing the system of elected rulers for the centuries to come. The mercenary episodes remained politically contentious. In 65 BBY, revelations about the noble house's prior use of mercenaries resurfaced during elections, undermining isolationist factions and fueling debates over the balance between economic openness and traditionalist policies.
Culture and religion. Over the centuries, the Naboo evolved from a nomadic, pastoral people into a sophisticated and cultured society. Their early existence on the sprawling oceanic grass plains had been defined by tribal and clan allegiances, with lineages traced to the original colony vessels and founding settlers. Even as centuries passed, genealogical heritage remained a point of pride, though by the time of Queen Amidala, few families could claim a verifiable link to the first colonists. From these roots emerged a feudal society with a clear noble class and common folk. Unlike more feudal systems in the galaxy, however, Naboo had no subservient serf class, allowing for a uniquely flexible social hierarchy. Their city-states engaged in mutual trade, not only with each other but with the Gungans, establishing a network of economic and cultural exchange. A ceremonial high king sometimes presided over these city-states, a title that rotated between princes or occasionally rested in a hereditary house. By the time of King Jafan, the house had grown in substance, but it remained largely a symbolic figurehead with an otherwise participatory political framework. The Naboo became renowned for their peaceful and enlightened society, valuing the arts, philosophy, and civic responsibility. Notably, adulthood and the right to vote were determined by intellectual maturity rather than age, creating a culture where teenagers could and did participate meaningfully in governance. This system allowed young people to rise to high public office, as exemplified by queens and senators such as Padmé Amidala, Jamilia, Nayuntni, Apayalana, and Puja Nabiri. The polytheistic Naboo revered a multitude of allegorical deities, among them the goddess of safety, and Shiraya, a moon goddess whose worship echoed lunar traditions found across many human cultures. Ancient philosophers, honored as enlightened gurus, were venerated alongside family ancestors, forming a central pillar of Naboo spiritual life. Paired statues of these semi-legendary figures flank the steps of the Theed Royal Palace, a silent testament to the Naboo belief that wisdom and devotion were inseparable. Monastic orders, composed of devoted holy men and women, preserved and practiced these traditions. Chief among them was the Brotherhood of Cognizance, an order devoted to contemplation, study, and the veneration of both deities and gurus. Governed by a pontifex, the Brotherhood maintained a hierarchy typical of human monastic systems. While some members lived in seclusion, favored remote mountain retreats, and a life of ascetic reflection, others served more publicly, safeguarding knowledge and guiding spiritual practice. Founded many centuries before the Clone Wars, the Brotherhood once numbered many more monks than the approximately 22 who remained by that era. Their teachings emphasized discipline, the study of knowledge, and reverence for art in all forms. Poetry, music, painting, and aesthetic expression were seen as pathways to enlightenment. During ceremonial rites, they traditionally wore purple garments, a symbol of their contemplative devotion. The pontifex of the Brotherhood in the late Republic, Maxiron Agalorga, famously performed the secret wedding of Anakin Skywalker and Padmé Amidala, exemplifying the Order's discreet but enduring influence. Natural elements were central to Naboo's spirituality. Fire symbolized the return of life to the planet. The dead were cremated within 2 days, and their ashes cast from the bridge linking the temple and Livet Tower into the Solu River, returning their essence to Naboo's core. Architecture and ritual also reflected a symbolic cosmology. For example, 7 lesser gates were said to safeguard the plasma refinery complex, representing impassable doors that kept chaos itself at bay. Shiraya, the moon goddess, was traditionally depicted as a winged female humanoid wielding a crescent-shaped symbol. Prominent Naboo figures, such as Padmé Amidala, demonstrated personal devotion to Shiraya. At her family retreat in Varkino, Amidala maintained statues of the goddess, and as queen, she sometimes wore ceremonial headdresses in her honor. Later, as senator, she displayed her statues on the open-air veranda of her Coruscant apartment, blending personal faith with public service. At the heart of these orders, the pontifex served as the spiritual and administrative leader, preserving the teachings, overseeing rituals, and guiding monks in their contemplative duties. Beyond governance, the pontifex acted as a mediator between the sacred and the secular, ensuring that Naboo's cultural, artistic, and spiritual traditions remained intertwined, a guardian of the planet's enduring ethos. Cities and settlements.
Despite the nomadic roots of early Naboo society, human settlements gradually took shape along trade routes, river crossings, and naturally defensible locations. Among the first and most prestigious was Deja Peak in the Gallo Mountains. Though political authority eventually shifted to Theed, Deja Peak retained symbolic reverence as one of the planet's foundational settlements. Settlements such as Kareen and Theed emerged as agricultural hubs, their fertile lands producing surpluses that supported a growing leisure class. Over time, Kareen became the commercial heart of the region, while Theed evolved into a center for aristocratic influence, home to palaces, academies, and the royal court. Along the coast, Cadera developed as a small fishing town, supporting the local maritime economy. Moania, the only human settlement with the traditional Gungan homeland of the Leonorm swamps, reflected the delicate coexistence and occasional tension between Naboo humans and the amphibious natives. The planet's geography shaped its cultural and political regions. The northern grass plains, stretching to the northern ocean, were divided into provinces: the Great Grass Plains, dominated by Theed, the sparsely settled eastern Great Grass Plains, and the western Great Grasses Plains, home to the Cadera and the Kareen. The Gallo Mountains province encompassed Deja Peak and the lake country retreat of Variakino, famed for its scenic waterways and royal villas. To the south, the immense Leonorm swamp stretched across the landscape, with Maeonia as its regional capital. Even during the Imperial era, this remote region retained significance. Emperor Palpatine maintained a secluded retreat atop a dormant plasmic volcanic caldera, hidden deep within the swamp. Through these settlements, Naboo maintained a balance between commerce, agriculture, and political authority, with each region reflecting both the natural character of the land and the social hierarchy of its human inhabitants. The interplay between river, swamp, plain, and mountain continued to shape the rhythms of Naboo life for millennia.
Otoh Gunga, often called Gunga City, was the largest and most influential of the Gungan settlements on Naboo, serving as the heart of their government and cultural life. Nestled against a massive underwater cliff deep within Lake Paonga, the city was a marvel of hydrostatic engineering. Vast bubbles of pressurized air kept the lake's waters at bay while allowing Gungans to move freely between the city's chambers and the surrounding waters. Beyond the main city, satellite clusters of smaller buildings dotted the lake, often repurposed from older or abandoned Gungan settlements. While Gungans were fully capable of surviving on land, they deliberately chose the submerged sanctuary of Otoh Gunga as their capital, preserving distance from the human inhabitants of Naboo and maintaining the independence of their society.
Theed's transformation from a modest farming village into a vibrant capital was a testament to Naboo's commitment to harmony. Nestled along the fertile banks of the Selous River, the city benefited from a network of tributaries that nourished its fields and allowed for early irrigation systems. When King Jaffin unified Naboo's fractious city-states, he deliberately chose Theed as his capital, both for his defensible location on the steppe lands and for its established population of settlers who had fled the violence of the preceding civil wars. Under Jaffin's guidance, Theed underwent an era of extensive planning and reconstruction. The city took on a cohesive architectural style, with sandstone-like blocks crowned by green shingled roofs, reflecting a sense of order and aesthetic refinement that would become emblematic of Naboo's capital. Beneath its streets, a network of underground tunnels was carved into the planet's porous terrain, meticulously maintained to serve as both storage and secure passageways for generations. Beyond its physical beauty, Theed became a center for cultural and political sophistication. Its universities and academies trained citizens in governance, diplomacy, and civic responsibility, fostering a society where politicians and statesmen were as respected as warriors or artisans. By the time of the Galactic Republic, Theed had earned a reputation not only as the seat of Naboo royalty, but as a cradle of refined culture, civic pride, and intellectual pursuit, where the art of politics was cultivated with as much care as the city's gardens and fountains.
Monarchy. After centuries of governance by a hereditary dynasty, the monarch of Naboo transitioned into an elected office, ushering in an era of unprecedented prosperity. Theed, once a modest village along the Solu River, had shed all traces of its agrarian past to become a city of refinement and learning. Generations of leisure class fostered the arts and education, commissioning monuments to rulers and philosophers, constructing museums and concert halls, and ensuring that all citizens participated in the legislative youth program during their academic years. The city's governor bore the title of Prince or Princess of Theed, symbolizing both civic leadership and the continued prestige of Naboo's monarchy. From the perspective of the Galactic Republic, the monarchy of Naboo remained the planet's most enduring institution, its roots stretching back to the earliest days of human settlement, around 3900 BBY. The Republic explorer, Quillan, discovered Naboo with a fleet of 3 ships. In the aftermath, human refugees fleeing civil war on Grismalt, led by Quillan himself, established settlements across the mountains of the Great Grass Plains. These city-states were often in conflict with one another, and clashes with the indigenous amphibious Gungans further complicated the fledgling society. During this turbulent period, the settlers elected a woman as their leader. She accepted the title of queen, but refused to establish a hereditary dynasty, decreeing instead that her successors would be chosen for their wisdom rather than birthright. Though the Naboo initially embraced this meritocratic system, the society eventually reverted to a dynastic model. King Narmley became the earliest monarch of a line that would later be solidified under King Jaffin, whose reign marked the unification of Naboo. The king or queen of the planet was advised by a governor, who presided over the Royal Advisory Council, a body that counseled on matters of law, diplomacy, and public welfare. In addition to this royal apparatus, the people of Naboo elected senators to represent their sector within the Galactic Republic, giving the planet a voice in galactic affairs. The prefix, Royal Naboo, was attached to many institutions, signaling their connection to the monarchy, such as the Royal Naboo Security Forces, charged with maintaining order both in the cities and across the countryside. Leadership was not strictly bound by age. The planet became notable for its youthful rulers, most famously Queen Padmé Amidala, who assumed the throne at just 14. The planet prided itself on meritocratic elections and strictly limited terms to 4-year terms for a monarch, no more, as mandated by the Constitution, though attempts were made to amend it to give Amidala a 3rd term. However, she gracefully abdicated to allow Queen Jamilia to assume the role. Amidala was quickly offered the role of senator, to which she graciously accepted. Jar Jar Binks was appointed as a dedicated representative of the Gungans, becoming the first of his people to be represented beyond Naboo itself. In the wake of the Trade Federation invasion, Gungan ambassadors were stationed in Theed to represent their interests in the human capital. Their presence signaled reconciliation, though the balance remained delicate. The monarchy's rule was briefly interrupted in 32 BBY by the Trade Federation invasion, an event that also reshaped Naboo's internal and external politics. In the aftermath, the humans and Gungans of the planet strengthened their alliance, sending Gungan representatives and bureaucrats to the Galactic Senate for the first time. Allowing the rise of the Galactic Empire, Naboo, along with the rest of the Chomel sector, came under the authority of an Imperial Moff who oversaw the region on behalf of the Emperor. Several royal houses dominated Naboo's political and social life. Among the most influential were House Nabiri, the family of Queen Amidala, House Palpatine, whose members would also rise to galactic prominence, and other notable dynasties such as House Parnelli, House Tapalo, and House Varuna. Those who entered politics often shed part of themselves in the process, adopting a name of state for public use. It was meant to embody dignity and office, but it also created distance. Padmé Nabiri became Amidala. Others, like Ars Varuna and Bon Tapalo, elevated their second names. The private citizens faded behind the title. Naboo cultivated an image of calm and beauty, and for the most part, Theed lived up to it. Still, cracks showed. Around 22 BBY, migrant laborers staged protests against brutal working conditions. Their demonstrations were swiftly dismantled by Theed's police forces, and just as swiftly erased from polite conversation. Naboo's leaders were carefully insulated from such unrest, preserving the illusion of a flawless world, one that depended quietly on not looking too closely. Flora and fauna.
Naboo was home to a vibrant ecological landscape that included numerous plants and animals of all varieties. The Gungans were especially adept at harnessing these creatures to fulfill various roles and functions in their societies, though not all creatures were amenable towards domestication and remained dangerous predators, largely in the depths of the planet's core. The dominant plant life ranged from resilient ground growths to towering canopy species. In wetlands and lowlands, semi-aquatic organisms such as bubble spores thrived, their translucent sacs releasing clouds of spores when disturbed. Shallow waters supported flowering plants like shura, whose petals closed at night, while broad-leafed species such as the wuxia plant adapted to constant moisture, their waxy leaves often repurposed as natural waterproof coverings. In more temperate regions, the fragrant milleflower was cultivated for ceremonial use, while the hasuberry tree produced small, dark berries prized for both consumption and fermentation. Forests were anchored by long-lived species like the periote tree, valued for its dense, durable wood, and the massive zala tree, whose high canopy supported complex microhabitats despite its slow reproductive cycle. In harsher environments, vegetation adapted toward survival rather than abundance. The zorno plant, a thorn desert species capable of storing water within its stem, was essential to arid ecosystems, while fast-growing mint tree vines spread through human regions, their fibrous strands occasionally harvested for weaving. Animal life reflected a balance between utility, reverence, and danger. Herbivores, such as the Naboo domesticated Ikopi and the swift Kadu, closely associated with Gungan culture, formed the backbone of transport, agriculture, and warfare. Larger beasts, like the armored Famba and towering Flampuset, moved slowly through swamps and plains alike, their immense size offset by generally docile nature when trained. Awas, majestic cetaceans, were capable of both powerful swimming and sustained flight. Native in great numbers to the storm-racked oceans of Camino, where they were domesticated by the Kaminoans as mounts, Awas could launch themselves from cresting waves and carry their momentum into the air. Similar populations existed on Naboo, where they traveled in medium-sized pods across vast lakes and inland seas. The Gungans successfully domesticated them for aerial transport, reconnaissance, and even warfare, deploying Awas as mobile observation platforms and improvised bombers. Predatory species also stalked the environment, both on land and in the waters. Stealth hunters such as the Narglach and the tusked feline known as the tusk cat inspired both fear and local myth, while pack-hunting Veermoks were lethal through coordination alone. Aquatic regions were dominated by colossal threats like the Opie sea killer and the elusive Sando aqua monster, creatures that lurk deep in the oceans of Naboo. Similar resilient species grounded these ecosystems in daily survival. The widely domesticated Nuna provided a reliable source of food, while hardy fish such as scalefish thrived even in polluted or heavily trafficked waters. Together, these creatures formed a living continuum, from the mundane to the legendary, that shaped travel, warfare, and survival across the planet.
Economics and exports. Naboo's wealth and influence were rooted as much in its natural resources as in its artistry and culture. The planet's plasma, drawn from its unique subterranean energy veins, was the most coveted export, fueling starships and industrial operations across the galaxy. The plasma trade began under the reign of King Varuna, but the Trade Federation soon sought to dominate it, culminating centuries later in the infamous blockade of Naboo. Alongside plasma, Naboo produced blossom wine, a rare and fragrant vintage distilled from the petals of indigenous flowers, prized for both its aroma and its elegance at galactic banquets. Naboo also exported fine art, architecture, and cultural artifacts, spreading its distinctive aesthetic across neighboring systems. The planet yielded milleflower, grains, and crystalline formations, which were highly valued for their use in both decoration and technology. Conversely, Naboo imported advanced technology and processed foods, integrating off-world innovations into its otherwise pastoral and artistic society. Some trades were limited by local customs. For example, the footwear industry remained small, as Gungans preferred to go shoeless, and those wishing to practice shoemaking, such as the artisan brute, often had to leave the planet to find patrons. By balancing tradition with trade, Naboo maintained a relative prosperity, exporting not only its natural resources, but the refined taste and elegance that had become synonymous with its people. Moons and colonies.
Omadun, often called the Water Moon, was Naboo's largest moon and for a time a symbol of fragile cooperation. In 32 BBY, following their alliance with the humans of Naboo, the Gungans established a settlement there, transporting plant and animal life to give shape to an otherwise empty world. The experiment was short-lived. In the early years of the Clone Wars, the Confederacy of Independent Systems deployed a gas weapon on the moon, killing many of the Gungan colonists. Human interest endured longer. Spice mines were later carved into Omadun's surface. Around 2000 BBY, King Narmiel, the explorer, expanded Naboo's reach to its swamp-choked second moon, Rory, founded a city that still carried his name. Legends suggest earlier unrecorded settlements, but no surviving evidence has ever confirmed them. Rory was a harsh world, smothered in gray skies, tangled jungles, and vast wetlands, where the vegetation grew darker and more twisted than on Naboo itself. Officially colonized during the height of the Galactic Republic, Rory remained on the margins of galactic history. A second city, Restus, was later constructed as a quarantined processing center during the brainworm rot outbreak, reinforcing the moon's reputation as a place for containment rather than prosperity. Under Queen Calintha, and later the Empire, Rory saw only limited involvement in the wider galactic civil war until at least one ABY, when the Battle of Restus erupted. The fighting left one of the moon's few cities completely destroyed. There's an unnamed third moon that orbited Naboo alongside Omadune and Rory. Little more than an overgrown asteroid, it remained uninhabited and largely ignored.
Now a word from our sponsors.
Long hyperspace routes can feel longer when you're alone. Introducing the ES Series Emotional Support Droid, programmed for active listening, gentle encouragement, and over 6 million forms of comfort.
Your feelings are valid.
Now equipped with adaptive empathy processors and non-judgmental response matrices. Because no citizen of the galaxy should suffer in silence. Visit your nearest authorized retailer today. ES Series Emotional Support Droids. You don't have to process it alone.
Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon. This is Christian.
And this is Jordan.
We're currently on the serene, peaceful banks of the secret lake getaway that Anakin and Padmé enjoyed on the beautiful world of Naboo.
Yeah, where you can't see the slave labor who is mining for plasma.
No, ignore those. Don't look over there. That's not what this is about.
Nowhere near where we are, though. It should be a fun discussion about Naboo. But first, let's do a bit of housekeeping. Want to thank all our Patreon supporters for supporting the show all these years. If you want to become a Patreon member at patreon.com/starlores, you can support the show for as little as $3 a month. That's the basic tier. And then we got the night or the master tier rather for $5 a month, and with that you get not only the bonus episodes but ad-free listening as well. If you want to reach out to us, we are on all the social medias. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Discord. We also have an email, starlordspodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to go check out our link down in the description. That'll have all the links to all the aforementioned social media stuff, as well as other ways to support like PayPal, Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. Also, if you want to help us out in another way, one of the best ways to help us is to go and give us a 5-star rating and review on the show, wherever you listen to podcasts. And, again, shout out to the YouTube. Go to the YouTube and sub. So we're trying to get those subs up on YouTube. I want to do some more on YouTube, but
help us get to 1,000 to justify the work it will take to do video content.
Yeah, we've been such an audio heavy podcast for so many years. It's hard to, you kind of drag your feet to
get into the visual space.
Break into the visual.
But give us an excuse. Go support us on YouTube.
Like the YouTube, it's hard because the YouTube subscriber base is like such a small fraction of what we have.
Our total listener base.
But it is, from everyone I've talked to, it's worth it if you can break into it, But
go help us out.
Yeah, go help us out there.
All right. Great. Well, we're just enjoying these last serene views before I get shipped off to the moon of Rory because of my terrible brain rot disease that I've unfortunately contracted.
Is that why you're coughing?
That is why I'm coughing, yes.
Did you get it mining for plasma? The plasma.
We don't talk about what I do on Naboo. The Naboo files have not been exposed yet. The Palpatine files. Okay. No, we're not going there.
I did want to say before we get into it, just how sort of historically important Naboo is to the Star Wars saga, especially the Skywalker saga. Obviously, we have Palpatine from himself being from Naboo. And then even like Luke and Leia, they're in a sense half Nabooese. Nabooan, they descend from Naboo royalty.
Yeah.
You know,
It's in their blood.
Yeah. So that's not really like talked about much.
So even though Leia was adopted by a royal family, she was actually, her bloodline is
Yeah.
royal, so she will always be Princess Leia.
Yeah, exactly.
And not the demoted General Leia.
Yeah. So it's a very like historically important.
That makes Luke a prince too, actually.
Yeah. You know, I'd love to, if I could rewrite the Disney sequel. I would take Luke does a whole bunch of like ancestry.com or something. And
Discovers their connection.
Yeah, and then like goes rather than going to a sand planet, he goes like Naboo.
Naboo.
And
what a different story that would be.
Yeah, the maternal side of his lineage. So.
Yeah.
Anyways,
mentioning though Leia and her adoptive family, there are a lot of parallels between Naboo and Alderaan. If you go back and listen to our Alderaan episode,
definitely,
definitely a liberal paradise, full of leisure and education and the arts. And
it kind of reminded me of Canada, where its wealth comes almost entirely from its natural resources.
Plasma reserves.
Yeah, but they don't ever want to talk about that. They only want to talk about they only ever want to talk about their like wine.
Wine exports, yes.
Yeah.
That's the thing Canada is known for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not a bad comparison. But yeah, it does, obviously you can see why the culture and the society of Naboo develops as it does. Going a little bit farther back into history, though, talking briefly about the Elders, the first alien visitors to Naboo. Really interesting backstory to those. So if people pay close attention to episode 1, you can actually see these giant stone head statues all kind of dotted around Naboo, especially around the Gungan areas.
Mm-hmm.
They visually look very much like old ancient Buddhist statues. That was, I think, the obvious inspiration. And they were originally designed actually to be dotted around Tatooine, like way back in the first drafts of A New Hope. But they didn't make the cut for Tatooine, so they kind of transposed them onto Naboo instead. Which they're cool. They add a little bit more depth, like these mysterious.
Yeah, Naboo has always been like very the whole aesthetic to it, especially like the city. Or is Theed the
capital city?
Yeah, that you see in the movie.
Yeah.
Like you kind of get these like Japanese vibes, like the geisha thing.
So they are a mix. I wouldn't say it's Japanese. So
no, I'm not saying it is. It's just it feels like you get some
of the aesthetics
and the robes and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I know for a fact that one of Amidala's queen costumes, the one with the 2 large braids that she wears to the Senate, was actually based on the Mongolian royalty. Like it's almost copied one for one. However, Theed itself is interesting.
Theed, like I was gonna say though, Theed, I feel like Venice, like I'm in Venice or something like that.
So a lot of the location,
and even Palpatine sort of reminds me more of a sort of like conniving Roman senator, right?
Politician.
Like, that's sort of how he acts.
Yeah, you're certainly not wrong. A lot of the real life location shoots were done around Italy, so a lot of the like internal and external shots of Naboo are actually real city streets in I don't know all the locations, but they're old, Florentine Italian cities.
Right.
They're obviously trying to evoke a lot of the Renaissance again with that high culture art and things. So you're not wrong with the strong like Italian connection. And the main palace of Theed looks a lot like the Hagia Sophia. So that was an obvious inspiration for that structure and stuff. So again, this very Byzantine Italian mix of like high culture and philosophy and arts.
And I almost get like post-Roman era Italy, like city-states,
Renaissance
Sicily,
almost,
like era Italy,
Yeah, certainly. And I think that's exactly what, again, you talk about like the story of episode 1 is like that republic that becomes an empire, which is obviously a very Roman story.
Yeah.
So it's all very Italian coded, let's say. which I really like. I always love the aesthetic of Naboo.
But it's just a weird, like, the mixture of sort of the Amidala royalty, like her whole entourage and herself, like the getup she's in. Again, kind of reminds me of almost like a Japanese
Eastern,
or Asian.
Well, again, it speaks to Star Wars. It just takes elements and combines them to make something different, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's what makes good Star Wars, and definitely Naboo. A lot of criticism actually around Naboo is more to do with their technology and their ships. That put off a lot of fans who love that gritty space
it's very
trucker.
sleek,
Where Naboo's like very refined, sleek ships, very aerodynamic and clean and shiny.
Yeah.
Which
I think it's good to have that mix in the Star Wars universe, because why would everything be like
junk all the time?
Yeah, like just all Western junk, like kind of falling apart.
No, I'm of mixed opinions. I can see where, like, especially if episode 1 is your first exposure to Star Wars on cinema after like 20 years.
Yeah.
Where
Sure.
you could be like, I expected boxy ships. These are not boxy ships. But I also think Star Wars is big enough to have Naboo type buildings and ships as well.
Yeah, like Naboo tech seems very symmetrical, which is not typical of
Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars,
certainly. Outside of that, actually, they did some of the shots as well of Naboo from Spain as well.
Okay,
but a lot of Spain has that same kind of like Italian
Mediterranean
architecture. Yeah. But outside of that, Naboo is, I think, slept on a little bit. It's kind of, it's prominent in the films, obviously, because it has to be. But there's a lot of cool stories that come out of there. Not just like ancient history, which is also cool, but also post episode 1, where you have these other queens that kind of come up and kind of what happens to them under imperial rule. We didn't have time, unfortunately, to explore their stories in this episode, but we definitely will be revisiting other aspects of Naboo. There's a lot more history and culture and people to be discussed, let's say.
For sure.
Yeah. Really quick. Avatar. A lot of this is like pre-Avatar Avatar. Especially with the Gungans and their
that's true.
Their relationship. Can you imagine Avatar but with Gungans? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what if what's his name?
James Cameron.
Yeah, James Cameron did episode 1. That would be wild.
An alternative universe. Yeah.
I feel like I wouldn't hate a James Cameron.
Oh my
Star Wars.
You know what? He did Aliens. He can do obviously some kind of sci-fi.
Like if they just did a very basic story plot that is not creative at all, James Cameron could hit it out of the park, But I don't know. You guys tell us what you think. Should James Cameron direct a Star Wars film?
Add him to our roster.
Yeah. Okay. What would you think? Pitching a Star Wars TV series idea, like I know they're kind of doing this with Andor already, like what you would call it, like Game of Thrones. Whereas Andor sort of leans into that. I haven't really watched Andor. Like we try and focus more on the Legends material, but that's just what I've read about Andor. So, but I think a much better Game of Thrones would be on Naboo. Yeah. If you wanted to do Star Wars Game of Thrones, like let's go to the past. Let's bring up House of Palpatine and
the rise of House. Yeah. I don't hate it.
Yeah. I mean, come on. This could work.
The first hardcore nudity in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Come for the politics, the blood, the intrigue. Yeah. But I do like your comparison made to Palpatine. Like he's almost like a Machiavellian figure, and like very much, Renaissance Italy is kind of like the vibes. Even his outfits, actually, in episode 1, I was going back to look at clips just while I was writing this, and his outfits actually have that strong Italian Renaissance look and feel to them. So
yeah, for sure. And well, guys, let us know what you think about Naboo, and if you think it's as important as I think it is.
Would you plan a visit to Naboo?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely seems like a nice place to visit.
I feel like they would disarm their population, though.
Probably.
And that leads to Trade Federation invasions. So
yeah,
be careful what you wish for.
They would not be able to stop a droid invasion at all.
Not without the help of a little boy with, or an armed Gungan population.
Yeah, they're going to have to rely entirely on a bunch of native Gungans to protect them.
Which in some ways you could see as slavery if they're making them fight on their behalf. So,
Well, make sure to rate and review the show. If you want to support us, patreon.com/StarLords. Don't forget to check out all the socials and go sub to YouTube, guys. Okay, with that, we'll see you next time.